how, especially the finance organizations, should be aware of it and what kind of systems they have to build so that the systems unintentionally will not discriminate in terms of responses or the activities or actions. So Kiran, can you throw some light on how AI finance systems should adopt and manage the risk with the responsible AI?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me here. It's a privilege to be sitting with you guys. Thanks a lot, Veena. And thank you very much for listening to us. So in terms of bias, right, like you pointed out, sir, if you don't trust the data, there's nothing, garbage in, garbage out, right? You can't trust the model, right? But trust goes beyond model. I think you need to have the proper governance tools, you talked about it, to ensure that, we have the right in to the training to get the right out. There are three pillars from a bias detection perspective that, industry generally follows, right? First is you detect the data itself. You think about it of auditing the data, auditing the model once a training is done to check if there's any bias in there. So those are typical practices that they follow. The second is, you try to mitigate, maybe you nudge the model a little bit. If there is a bias towards the model is already created, you couldn't properly fix it, it's in production, now you need to make sure there's no gender bias, for example, right? So how do you do that? You have to nudge it. There are ways in which you can mitigate that. So that's the second way, proper testing and so on, that is the second mitigation. The third is monitoring, right? You got to have the tools, the governance in place to keep checking what is happening, who is inputting the data and so on. So those three ways are standard ways in the traditional classical ML approach. Now with generative AI, that adds another dimension of its own. These models come pre-trained, right? So you don't even do any training on your own. Very rarely, not yet. I haven't seen many organizations that do fine-tuning or customization. Or even, if somebody wants to build a model from scratch, it's so expensive, it's difficult. So there you need to have, typically you must have heard about this term guardrails, right? So you need to build the guardrails for the model. There's no other way. That's the nudging part that I talked about. So that's the way in which the industry is going in terms of, is it working, as Sharan Kumar said, we'll have to see. And we go day by day, we fix one problem, when another problem comes, we fix that and move on.
So, and just maybe follow-up question, right? See, one of the biggest challenge, at least I've seen, is that how do you train, employees, the people who are going to use this, the data or AI in and out, day in, day out. How do you prepare the people or the teams, especially in the finance organizations, so that they can successfully adopt and should be able to use it and they can trust it?
Yeah, I think, are you going more from the ethics side of things, or are you talking from how do you encourage them to use it? Which side are you? Ethics perspective.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So ethics is a beast of its own, right? So once we go into ethics, there's no policy that can control ethics, right? Ethics is an evolving thing, right? It's part of your culture. Number one is it should be ingrained in the culture, right? So you need to involve the right set of folks from disparate, teams within the organization or even backgrounds. The second part of it is you got to, I don't want to say tools, but maybe you got to do some social engineering by doing things like ensuring default behavior. For example, if you're training a model and you want to go into production, the default process is that, so-and-so have to review it. This is the way, this is the testing that needs to be done before it even you think about going into production, right? So that's the social engineering part that you plug it into play. And then the last part, I guess, you can think about, from an ethics perspective is uh, it's the team, right? The culture is there, but end of the day, you got to continuously train because ethics is a moving goalpost. Um, what is ethical 5 years ago? You talk to my daughter and she'll say, no, what you're doing, what you're saying, the language you're using, this is all wrong, right? So that keeps changing. So you need to have a continuous learning process. You can't keep it as though, okay, I've defined it, now let's go. You can't do that.
Yeah, no, that you should consider before you start an AI project. Maybe Kiran, if you want to add, maybe what are your top 2 or 3, aspects that you would consider before you start an AI project, the data aspects or training aspects or the tools aspects. What do you think is your priority for 2026 before you start an AI project?
Yeah, being part of Red Hat, I'm all about open. So I think open standards is something that we should implement before starting because it ensures consistency. It ensures there are standardization of connectivity because we're talking about agentic AI. It's about connecting your models to tools or data or systems. So that for me, building an open standardization around that is something I think is very, very critical. Of course, the whole uh, bias and ethical aspects will always be there, but I think this is critical.
Thank you.